out and drawing more. We had a construction and, company come in and verify the numbers. And that seemed to be acceptable to the North Shore Fire Department Board, like a method of figuring out more, feeling more comfortable with those numbers. And so is that what you're recommending? Because I mean, according to, and I haven't looked at the file in a long time, Mike said this from a year ago, but that we kind of have it. I mean, we have the components and we have the costs, just like we did for the fire station. And now we're just looking for verification to feel like, is there another entity that will confirm these costs based on today's market? And I'm just wondering if you're going to do that, like just go to a construction, or are you proposing that you would hire different consultants?
We would do that in-house with our estimating team.
So you don't need like an electrical consultant. I mean, what you had stated before was the 60,000 because you needed other people to give you better cost estimates.
We need the consultants to help us develop the scope of work in a little more detail to allow us to more accurately price it.
So to design, like to draw, or?
Correct.
Okay.
To figure out what those components look like. For example, in the garage, you have an HVAC system that's going to require a CO2 and exhaust system. What does that look like? What are the different systems we can use? You start to sit down and dial in some of that information, and I can more accurately price it. So we don't have to go full design. I think is where we're kind of going with this. We can go part of the way, get a little bit more information. We can update our numbers compared to the last round.
The only reason I ask that is if you're saying that maybe it's just increasing the contingency by 10, we still have the plans that show what the systems that you need, correct? So, and you're saying there probably is a variance of maybe 20%. And so if you just, knowing that, that's still $1,200,000 or, or $1,200,000 or $800,000. Is that acceptable at this time? So I think without a policy decision on basically the schematics we have, it's going to be it's not going to be a very good use of our funding to get better numbers. If we know the contingency is about 20%. I mean, we found that at the fire station as well, so that's my opinion. I think we have enough, we just trust you.
I think that the point is that if there's an option to do a garage in a less expensive way, then I don't want to just continue on with the refining the proposal for $1 million and maybe getting a $2,000,001 or 900 or 800. I mean, my question is there an option to, maybe it does affect operations, but is there an option to do a garage at a different scope and lesser amount? That's what because I just know, $1 million, when I look at our other capital needs, is, I prefer to be able to have some of that money to spend on roads or other things, frankly. So so I'm not interested in just refining the current proposal. I'm interested in alternate proposals, but I don't know what other people are interested in.
Is that, so my understanding, thank you, is that what the $60,000 is for, or is that refining to get that 20% variance?
It's a little bit of both, but it'd be more so heading down the path of finalizing this overall design.
That's my point.
So there's what it's going to cost in the current setup, and then there's what you're willing to spend. So if those are two.
So how do we, I agree with Trustee Menta, I don't know how the rest of the board is feeling, but if there was consensus, how do you take a different path, which is develop some alternatives for us to make it, even if it affects level of service, like kind of what we're doing with the rest of the budget, how do you do that?
We could take the current kind of rough floor plan and try to rough out some alternate options that would cost less.
Is that what you're, anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, I think a $1 million garage seems excessive, especially just finishing the budget conversation with almost $700,000 cap that we're trying to fill. So, I think coming back with an option that is $500,000, $600,000, I think would seem much more reasonable to our residents, because we're trying to cut all these different services to then turn $1 million on the garage is really hard to justify. So I think that option would be something that would be meaningful to everybody.
Okay. Any other, Trustee Moore?
No, I echo that sentiment. I think that at the end of the day, I'm not taking sides on where I'm going to fall here, but I think what the board wants to hear is different options potentially the lower price point, so we can make the best and most informed decision as to which price point we want to go to. I mean, maybe we see something in $1 million garage that we feel like we absolutely have to have, maybe we don't. Maybe we do something for a little bit cheaper, but I think that what's important here is to get full information so that we can make an informed decision.
Thank you. Trustee
Yeah,
Mom?
could you explain, Glendale's just in the process of building a garage for the police vehicles? But we probably had in the past the value of having cars garaged and the possible savings, long-term savings on the equipment, the vehicles, why you may want to invest in a garage at whatever level you're doing.
Trustee McKee?
Yeah, I guess if there's a way to project, so say a $500,000 garage allows you to park half as many vehicles of the fleet. How do you cost out what you're losing? You know, where do you make your, okay, so the difference between a $500,000 garage and a $1 million garage is probably the number of vehicles that you can park under different circumstances, I would imagine, just ballpark. So the question becomes, in what amount of time do you make back your $500,000 to park more vehicles? Does that make sense? Is there a way to do that kind of?
What is the vehicle life, 4 years?
I think
Replacement?
the question becomes, what do you need to do to give other options, right? And that's what we need to know is what we're gonna put in the budget for next year, if there's any money we can put in the budget for them to do any consulting or engineering or anything to get closer to that. So I guess that's, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you want us to bring you back a number that they can work on to give you options for?
Yes,
Okay.
that's what I want.
Okay, so we can do that. I'll talk with Eric offline and we'll get you a number that he thinks he could do that for you, and then, so we can do that over the course of the next 6 months or whatever, and then come back to you with a better idea of what it could look like, what are the options, and those types of things.
So from the nods, I'm,
Yeah.
yes, sorry. From the nods, I'm presuming then that we will be working on a number of which you are then comfortable with for purposes of the 2020 budget. Am I hearing that correctly? Seems
That's
like,
I understand that to be the goal.
the goal,
I
right?
think the question is, what are we,
Asking
like,
to
what are
post
we
out.
budgeting? If it's not the 65,000 for 19, what is it? What number is it for him to come up with alternatives? Is it 30, you know, is 30,000 sufficient to do that work?
I can come up with a more firm number, but saying here right now, I would say half of that number, 30,000, would give me enough to sit down with consultants and make some more informed decisions and come up with some options.
And project a $500,000 garage. So I think we're basically saying we've got $30,000 to spend on design. And we don't care what you call it, and you got $500,000 to build a garage. So show us what it is.
So I have a question though, going on Trustee McKay's point,
I think
right?
that's what we're saying.
So, no,
I don't-
it's logical there, I'm going on your point, that, so I'm just concerned because I don't know if this is what your bailiwick is, you know, I want to make sure we're spending the money on the right thing. So say you spent $30,000, I mean, basically, as Trustee McKay, if she is correct, that the options that come back are, the only options that are going to come back are how many cars can you house on the different levels of funding. That's like, I don't know, an hour of conversation. I mean, because you can look at the schematics and say how many cars can fit. And so I really do want to know that we're funding something that's necessary to fund. So if there's other options, like, well, you could not do, like Trustee Menta, and again, I'm just going off the conversation, but Trustee Menta said, well, maybe it's not you bring someone in, and so there's a piece of it that it's not just based on the number of cars, then maybe that makes sense to spend the money. And also, I think it's really easy to do your cost analysis of the lifespan, though. I mean, if we replace cars every 4 or 5 years, how much damage is it to leave 5 outside? And so that's, I don't know how.
Like, would we get 8 years out of a vehicle or something?
Right, so I just don't know how much we need to invest with an architect, and, you know, I don't know that answer, but just know that if it's something, when you come back to us, if it's something that's like, well, it's just gonna be a reduction in cars, We don't want to spend $30,000 on that.
Understood.
You got it. Okay. Thank you.
So it's okay to come back and say you don't want the job too, I can understand that.
We're running.
Or that there's no way to do it or
No,
something.
we're committed to figuring this out. Figure this out.
Yes, Rebecca.
Okay, so I just have to, I'm just reconnecting on timing, and I just want to make sure that I'm clear in terms of what timing is, so they have good direction. So that you're looking for them to come back with this sometime after inclusion of the budget, correct? Or no?
That's what I wasn't clear on. Does the board feel like they need a proposal in order to put a placeholder in the budget for 2019?
Do we need to? I guess that's a question for the administration.
Well, no, I want to know, I'm hearing a couple of different things. One of the first things I heard was that we're not going to have time to look at this on October 22nd. I put myself in your position, and I always want to see the options. So,
Is there an option of, so I guess we're asking your opinion, your advice. Is there, if we do not put this in the 2019 budget and say it comes back 30,000 as the scope, where do we get the funding from? I think that's the ultimate question.
then you would be looking at the 2020 budget.
Okay, so if we want to do anything in 2019, we need them to come back before the budget adoption.
Right,
Okay.
and so now.
I didn't know if there was reserve funds, sometimes we take it out of, yeah, Mark,
I mean, with this
it's a capital.
single project, and understanding that you want to have some time to discuss some of this, you know, the two components would be, you know, how much do we need to come up with two or more alternative proposals that would be more cost effective, and then, you know, do you need time to evaluate that? Now, when we do go through budget wrap-up on, what date do we?
October 22nd.
October 22nd. You know, if that's an insufficient timeline for you to contemplate that, I mean, the board can make budget amendments at the public hearing if
Put a
you're
study
waiting
to
on that
discuss.
additional information. Now, hopefully, you can come up with, my suggestion, we see what number you come up with to come up with that objective, get it back to us as soon as we can, and see where we go from there.
So I have two questions going on that. So I don't think it's that we need more time to contemplate, we just need time to discuss. And so the agenda is the problem, is how much time do we have on our agenda? So I want to make that distinction. But the second one is, most of the time we do budgeting, we budget for this in capital. Like when we did phase 1 and phase 2, didn't the studies come out of capital? Mark?
Yeah, well, there is a placeholder for the 65,000 in the capital budget currently. The-
So you would
What I'm hearing is you would like to have a refined number for different type of engagement on that
I'm just
proposed
asking,
use.
is there a way to advance the funds, to do the study, and then you bond for them, like we've done in the past? The study is included in the bonding cost,
If we have capital reserves, yes.
and we don't, right? We've used one.
We're very limited, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm sure we could scrape up 20 or 30,000, but I mean, we are getting well beyond the point of my personal comfort level.
Okay, so
And
in the
until the
past,
year's over, I can't tell you exactly what those numbers will be. And so they'll,
trustee Mata.
We're not talking about budgeting for the actual project in 19, are we?
No.
We're just talking about budgeting for the study in 19, so, and I heard $30,000, so
And I'm
I'm
hoping
not sure
for,
what the problem is.
the problem is we're gonna need time to discuss, and I'm fine with putting that on the agenda to discuss it.
To discuss $30,000?
The study,
What?
well, because I did just ask him if it's just gonna be car reduction, maybe it doesn't cost
But he
30,000.
hasn't done the study yet, so he can't answer that question until he's done the study. So what, I mean, I don't want to ask him to judge, to give us answers when we're asking him to look at it. He doesn't have the answers yet.
Rebecca.
So hearing some more from your discussion, what I would suggest to you then is then putting a $30,000 placeholder on your list. So right now, for purposes of the budget was prepared with a $65,000 study reflecting the scope that's in your package tonight. So another alternative for you to choose from on October 22nd is a lesser option, which is $30,000.
And what that would entail. And what, so we gotta, yeah, I'd like to see what that
And it
entails.
would be
for the-
helpful perhaps if you could submit to us within a week, a more detailed scope for no different than the other, what will be included within that?
Reduced fee for the time we need to do a little bit more research and gather information, come up with some more options.
For the, correct.
Sure.
You know, I think, you know, you can appreciate the position that they're in and that it's more helpful to see options because, you know, I think you hear like an expression to want to do something, but the $1 million is not, clearly not fitting the price point. So we need to look at other options and how to lean into that a little bit.
So, I mean, we just pulled 30,000 out of the
Exactly.
air. So maybe if we should ask them to come up, you get a sense of where we're at.
Give us a
You
scope.
come in, I would come in
And we
with
need to
what
discuss
you
it.
need to get that windmill higher.
So we'll put it on our wrap-up agenda. Is that what you're suggesting, Rebecca? So when we get the scope, you'll put it in the public packet, we'll read it just like any other agenda item, and it'll be on the agenda to discuss during that budget, separately from just budget wrap-up. This is the scope of services.
Is that, well, I was thinking a line item, but do you want me to list it?
I don't think
for
it matters
further
either way.
discussion? As soon as Eric would have an opportunity to compile that, it would be my intention to release that to the board when we did receive it.